In October 1980, the Austin Metro was launched as the British car to beat the world. Unfortunately, history has shown us that actually the British motor industry did not really beat the world, and sadly sort of shrunk really quite rapidly over the next 30 years. 40 years later in 2023, we don't really have any British cars to compare the Metro to, but we have two perhaps contenders that still carry British brand names. We've got the Mini and we've got the MG3. I think personally that the MG3 is the more natural successor to the Metro for a couple of reasons. Although the MG brand is now owned by a Chinese parent company, the MG3 was in fact designed on paper in Longbridge, and it was also assembled in Longbridge for about 4 years of its life. The Metro, also being a product of Longbridge, gives a little bit of a synergy to these two cars. The other point is that the MG3 is one of the cheapest cars that you can buy in Britain today, and that really fills the role that the Metro had back in the early 1980s. The Mini today is much more of a lifestyle product and commands a huge premium. And so I thought, let's get these two cars together and give them a little side-by-side test. And the lovely people at Brown & Gammon MG in Baldock in Hertfordshire have kindly lent me this rather nice 2023 MG3 for us to do this comparison video. So let's have a look around both cars inside and outside. We'll take them both out for a drive on the road, and then at the very end of the video I have a very special treat for you, so stick around. The Metro is a dinky little car. It's extremely cheeky and cute. Those inset headlights on this base model, that single door mirror, the kind of little curves that it's got. I think it's absolutely adorable. It was in my rearview mirror a few moments ago and it just looked like such a cute, adorable little thing. I wanted to give it a hug. The MG, on the other hand, it's not cute, but it is actually really very chunky. There's hints to me of the modern Suzuki Swift about it. I like the chunky body-coloured A-pillars. I like the door-mounted mirrors that give it kind of a little bit of a chunky look. The other thing, of course, to say is that the Metro is a 3-door body style, whereas the MG3 is only a 5-door body style. Of course, the Metro did get 5 doors later on in its life. Putting the two cars side by side, you can also see how much bigger a modern supermini is than one from the 80s. The MG3 absolutely dwarfs the Metro. Okay, I've jumped into the back of the MG. It's raining outside, so you haven't seen me sort of elegantly getting in and out of the lovely 5 doors that this has, as opposed to clambering over the Metro's front seat to get into the back of that. And I have to say, the space in the back of this MG3 is really quite remarkable. It's just a super mini, but I have like limo-like levels of space here behind my seat set in my driver's position. And also, the seat is quite high up from the floor. So not only can I sort of tuck my shoes underneath it, I can actually slide my thighs underneath the front seat. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. Opening the boot with the little handle at the bottom of it reveals a nice square, deep boot, but the load lip is quite high here. Okay, let's get this rear seat down so we can see what it's like. Pull this little tag, and down it folds nice and easy, and it's a 60-40 split. The Metro has only got a single seat that flips forwards, of course. However, if you've got big bulky items to load into the back of the MG3, you've got 2 big mountains to climb. The back of the car itself is really high up from the bottom of the boot. I'd say that's like 25 centimetres. And then the seats themselves have a sort of 10-15 centimetre lump to clear up onto those as well. So if you've got big boxes, you've been to IKEA or something like that, it really wouldn't be very easy loading things into it. Let's play Metro Practicality, just because I can't resist it. I love this car's party trick, I suppose. The only downside with the Metro compared to the MG is you do have to use the key to open the boot every single time, which is actually slightly annoying, especially when you've got the engine running on a cold day. Anyway, the boot opens and we can take the parcel shelf out by unclicking it off the strings on both sides. And then we reach underneath, we pull these 2 levers down, down goes the back of the backrest. The parcel shelf actually clicks into place. There you go, on it, so it won't move. And then, this is the bit I love. Oh. Off it goes, out of the way, and then we have a rather large, very tiny van. And yes, while the Metro does have the same high load lip as the MG, it's about 25 centimetres I'd say as well. Once you've cleared that, you do get the completely flat floor of a little van to put big items into. Right, so what is the MG3 like to drive, like on the road? Well, I've driven this for about 5 minutes or so. It's actually very intuitive to drive. Everything is kind of where you expect it to be. It's a rainy day, I've worked out how to make the wipers work. But yeah, my main impression of it, well, two main impressions so far is, one, everything's quite chunky, so it's very pleasant to hold the steering wheel. Like the pillars are quite chunky, it feels very robust. But the other impression is that it's actually quite slow. For a modern car, I'm struggling to accelerate up hills without having to go down a gear. It will take a while to get used to it, and I'm sure I'll be able to get maximum power out of it, but it doesn't seem to do much, to be honest. The brakes are good. The brakes are better than the Metro, most definitely. I think it's one of those cars where you have to treat it like a 90s supermini to some extent, you know, like a 1.1 Fiesta or a Saxo or something, where you do have to work the gears, which kind of feels a little bit odd in this day and age where you're so used to superminis having teeny tiny 1 litre engines with a turbo. Oh, that pillar. Yeah. So there we go. That's where the Metro wins, because I was going around that corner there and I literally could not see anything that was coming the other way because of that enormous A-pillar. The Metro's little spindly ones, yes, means that, you know, the survival rates of an accident are probably significantly reduced, but at least you can see to avoid it, unlike in this one. And speaking of accidents, the Metro scored 1 star famously in the Euro NCAP crash test in 1997, and the MG3 is the modern day equivalent to some extent, in that when it was launched in the UK in 2013, it scored 3 stars at Euro NCAP and was criticised for having some significant failings. But a lot of that comes down to the passive safety aspects of cars, and the MG3 being a budget car, the same way as a Dacia Sandero, it's kind of a choice by the manufacturer. They don't have so many of that safety kit, you know, they don't have all the extra computers on board, which is where the money goes on a more expensive car. So yes, it's a 3-star car, and yes, there are some shortcomings, but for goodness sake, it's still pretty damn good. Certainly compared to the Metro and pretty much anything from 20 years ago, I would imagine. Let's talk about price. The MG3 currently sells for about £13,600 in the UK, and when it was launched in 2013 it was selling for about £8,500, so it really shows how the car market in the UK has gone slightly crazy, for want of a better phrase, over the last decade. It's very easy to drive as well. I mean, I've been driving it for 20 odd minutes and I feel very at home in it. The dimensions of the car are really easy to judge. It's extremely easy to place on the road. I can really see why these cars are popular, particularly perhaps amongst people who are not so keen on the ultra-modern cars that are currently out there, which is essentially an iPad on wheels, you know, just a massive screen controlling everything. There's nothing scary about this car, there's nothing unfamiliar about this car, it feels very natural. It really appeals to me for that reason. Stepping into the Metro, and it really is stepping back in time. We have our ancient little A-series engine clattering away there with its valves chattering up and down. We've got the gearbox in sump, which makes that fantastic drop gear noise as you pull away. Gives this car its absolute charm and character. It's actually really fun to drive. You can kind of throw it about, it's very comfortable, it's softer than the MG, certainly, on this hydrogas suspension. I can really feel the difference now, just going up this hill, how much more undulating it feels rather than crashy. And that's not necessarily a criticism of the MG, it's just a fact of what modern cars are like to drive. The 4-speed gearbox does mean that I'm now doing 50 miles an hour and the car is slightly screaming out for a fifth, and there's nothing I can do about it to put it out of its misery. But having said that, I'm being a little bit mean. It is a lovely little cruiser at sort of 50 to 60 miles an hour. It just ticks along and is a very, very happy car. The controls on the Metro are all very, very light and delicate. Particularly the indicators and the light switches and everything, they just work with such a lovely little clicky action that are a delight to use. They're so lightweight. There's none of that damping here that you get in the MG of the controls, none of that plasticky damping feel, which is lovely. You get a much more kind of spindly organic feel in these. This particular Metro comes with a 1 litre A series or A plus series engine, and it does seem to do for me between 45 and 50 miles per gallon, even though it's got only a 4-speed gearbox. Oh, the sound of those drop gears, come on. The biggest difference for me between this and the MG3 is that although the MG is obviously by far the more competent car in pretty much every single possible way, apart from maybe visibility, this one has much better visibility. The character and the charm of this car just brings a smile to your face every single time you drive it. No matter what you do, no matter where you are, you cannot help but smile when you're driving a Mark 1 Metro. Even though it's really slow going up this hill, I don't care. Other road users also treat you differently. It's so cute and charming. People will forgive the fact that you're joining a motorway at 46 miles an hour. I have a foot flat on the floor, and we are now doing nearly 60, so you know, not too bad. And the Mini behind me has now finally given up on me. But there we are, we're on the A1, we're ticking along. Car's really happy, I'm really happy. What more do you want? And here I am back at Brown & Gammon's MG dealers in Baldock. They've been here since the 1970s selling and servicing MGs, and in 2011 they started selling the new modern MG range of cars, starting with the MG6. One of the main competitors to the MG3 is the Dacia Sandero, and probably the whole Dacia range to some extent. But one of the things you don't get from a Dacia is this kind of really small, family-run, independent dealership like you get for the MGs. And this particular one, Brown & Gammon, has some really interesting cars around the back. So let's go and take a look at them. It's not at any modern car dealership that you can walk into and buy a decades-old model on the manufacturer's approved scheme. So inside this showroom we have a really nice collection of some classic MGs to purchase. We've got an MG-B from 1979, that's 14995 by the way if you're interested. We've got a 1969 I think chrome bumpered MG-B, haven't got a price tag on that one. Over here we've got a TF from 1954 for about £30,000. But the most exciting car that this dealership has in stock is a 1936 MG3, which is the oldest car available as a franchise dealer's approved used car. And I think that is just absolutely glorious. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you've enjoyed this little comparison between the British car of the 1980s and a British badged car of the 2020s. I've got loads more videos coming up, so do join me for those in the future. Do like and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye. Which is the oldest car on...
Do you want me to like